Good morning to the church. The presentation will be done in a university setting in which several lecturers of renowned scholarship will present on specific aspects of Deuteronomy chapter 28. The presentation will shed light upon the following: who wrote the text and to whom it was written, the circumstances which gave rise to this particular scripture, the background under which it was written or penned, the socio-economic political climate at the time, what the writer wanted to achieve or accomplish then. In addition, what lesson can be extracted from the text and applied within the 21st Western cultural setting. The general church will represent the students, that's you, and will be called upon to interface and interact with the lecturers during the course of their submissions. The presentation is designed to expose you, the students, to a wider and more in-depth knowledge of the text and encourage self-application to personal life. To remind us all that we are creatures of choice, and when that choice rejects God as Savior, the consequences would eventually give rise to a life of misery here and now, and will be extremely devastating. At this time, we will now present our first lecturer. Hailing from the University of Texas, students, I present to you Professor Allison Dusa Branch. She majors in Old Testament studies. She will give an introduction to Deuteronomy chapter 28.
Good morning, students. I am so glad to see that many of you decided to sign up for the Old Testament survey. And today's emphasis is on Deuteronomy, specifically Deuteronomy 28. Now, the title Deuteronomy is derived from the Greek, and it means copy or a repetition of the law. Now, in Deuteronomy 28, this is Moses' farewell address to Israel before they entered the promised land of Canaan. So Moses would have been pleaded with Israel as a corporate nation as well as individuals to choose God when employing the faculty of choice. Now, in his quest to accomplish this goal, he used tenets of persuasion by employing the devices of repetition, emotive language, modality, and authority in an effort to appeal to reason and intellect to influence their choice. Now, repetition can be seen in the use of if, introducing conditionality. Bless, highlighting the positive results of serving God. Curse, as a consequence of rejecting God. Shall, as both a modal and auxiliary verb, emphasizing a definitive future and the surety of either blessing or curses dependent upon choice. And the emotive language, as mentioned above, is seen in the extremes of blessings or curses, dependent again on choice. Now, Deuteronomy highlights the blessings of making God their choice and the severe consequences of not doing so. The book outlines numerous benefits for choosing God, as opposed to the myriad of curses resulting from rejecting him. Deuteronomy is written against the backdrop of freedom obtained after 400 years of oppression, slavery, and deprivation. A freedom which was thrusted upon them, exposing their barbaric instincts, which were fueled by centuries of idolatry and a lack of civilized environment. Therefore, it became expedient to vividly illustrate, via contrasting parallelism, the bliss of serving him, as opposed to the consequential misery of returning to idolatry. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dusabranch, for that in-depth and exhaustive presentation. You have indeed given much food for thought. Next, we have our visiting professor from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Professor Erskine Branch. Let's welcome him. He will lecture on the topic of choice.
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, allow me to do a quick piece of homework here and make a clarification as it refers to consequence. I want to emphasize to you students that in English, French, and in Latin, all definitions given to consequence reveal that it is a negative outcome. Therefore, this research team will not use consequence in relation to the blessings of God, but we will say the blessings of God is one of the blessings and benefits, whereas the consequence comes as a result of rejecting God. Now, on the aspect of choice, I want to first emphasize, students, that I am not speaking about choice in terms of an act, but I am speaking about choice in terms of a faculty. A faculty that is an inherent power. A faculty that is the tenet of the soul. And therefore, in an effort to fully deal with this subject matter, it behoves me to return to the Genesis narrative to shed some light on the whole question of choice. Now, when God decided to bring into existence a creature that mirrored his image, it became expedient for him to bestow upon that creature certain attributes. And these attributes constitute the soul of the individual. Attributes like the mind, to be rational and to be the ability to think. Emotional, the ability to love and hate. And a will, the power of determination and the power to overrule. I want to emphasize to you students that God would have fallen woefully short if he had now withheld from the human creature the attribute of choice. God could not give reason and intellect. He could not give love unless he gave choice. Why is this? Because choice is the hub upon which all other attributes rotate. And this is referred to as the indispensable attribute because it gives what can be termed operational freedom to all other attributes. Therefore, it was necessary that God dispense this attribute. I am going to give you an example now. It might sound strange to you when I tell you that love cannot choose. Because choice is a separate and distinct faculty. Love can only lavish itself upon that which is chosen. But it doesn't have the faculty of decision making. It belongs to choice. And therefore, allow me what is going on within the world today that you can identify with in all our universities and what the governments of the world are passing. The decision for a man to sexually love another man does not lie with the power of love, but rather with the power of choice. Nature may offer up feminine characteristics to a man, but the decision to indulge in homosexuality or homosexual acts is one in the preview of not of nature, but in the preview of choice. Therefore, the act is not one of nature, but rather one of nurture. And if it calls about nurture, it means nurture connotates choice. God knew in choice lied the possibility of sin. Since choice presents the alternative, man could now embrace God or he could reject God. Choice was the attribute, therefore, that God quivered and was reluctant to give. But his hands were tied, and that if he withhold choice, the human creature would not mirror him. And therefore, in concluding, Moses, in the book of Deuteronomy, is appealing to the children of Israel to employ the powers of intellect or reason to influence choice. I lay my case here.
Thank you, Professor, for that thorough presentation on the subject of choice. Next up, we have our own indigenous lecturer from the Better Life University, Professor Anthony Boyce. He will lecture on the topic of blessings.
I must say that Mr. Boyce's presentation will be done in a way where I interview Mr. Boyce. Mr. Boyce, your subject matter is one of blessings. Judging from your exhaustive research, it is evident that the blessings resulted in Israel becoming a power in global politics. My question to you is, tell us, did Israel have a Ministry of Foreign Affairs then?
Yes, good morning, students. Certainly, they forged unilateral and bilateral relationships with surrounding nations in trade, commerce, and economic agreements.
Since you have spoken about trade and commerce, my next question to you, sir, what role did the Ministry of Agriculture play in Israel's economic viability?
Well, agriculture was the main engine of the economy. For example, wine, olive oil, and mandrake were precious commodities which brought in valuable foreign exchange for the country.
I'm going to pose another question to you yet. Why was it necessary to mention the many overwhelming barns?
Because this speaks of the sustainable supplies which they had. These supplies would be used in times of drought or in cases where countries tried to siege the nation, they would have food to sustain them during this period.
Are there any other industries that fall under the auspices of the Ministry of Agriculture you would like to mention?
Yes, certainly. Livestock. Cattle and flock were used for human consumption, camels and donkeys for transportation, and horses for the armies.
Okay. This is where the wealth of the nation was measured. Okay. Certainly Israel became what could be termed, I should say, let me ask this other question to you. Can you tell us anything about the Ministry of Finance?
Oh, certainly. Israel became bankers on an international scale. Israel was known for lending to many nations.
Last but not least, having all this wealth, there must be some means of protecting and defending it. My question to you, was there a Ministry of Defense and Security in Israel at that time?
Yes. Surely God himself fought for Israel. He said that he will eliminate their enemies, that he's the Lord of hosts and the God of armies.
Thank you very much, Professor.
No problem.
We will continue. We will continue with our interview portion of this presentation. At this time, Professor Branch will interview our Professor Jennifer Williams. She hails from the University of Sussex, England. She has done extensive research on folk religion and folklore. Let's welcome her at this time.
Thank you. Good morning, students. First, let me say that the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28, as a consequence of rejecting God, are too numerous to mention in this forum. As a result, I will identify 3 areas of concern, namely, disease associated with agriculture, human disease, and the magnitude of deaths resulting from these diseases. Professor Branch, could you please confine your interview to these specific areas?
I will certainly, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. I question you then, in your research model, you mentioned about blasting. Explain to the students what is blasting.
Blasting is a disease resulting in the plant's inability to produce fruit or seed.
Okay. I have never heard of the word scorching in modern agricultural terms. Please explain it.
Okay. This was when the hot Arabian desert wind burned the leaves of the plants.
We all have heard about mildew. Was it the same back in that time?
Oh, certainly not, no. This was a fungal disease affecting the foliage of the plant back then.
Okay. Let us now turn to our attention to the human diseases. I am curious about this disease known as consumption. Elaborate on it.
Back in those days, it was a bacteria that affected the lungs. It was given the name due to the massive weight loss, and it's our equivalent to tuberculosis.
I have never heard the term porch used in medical terms, in modern medical terms. Tell the students what is porch.
Okay. Botch is the swelling of the skin, boils appearing all over the body, with pus, for lack of a better word, or inflammations and sores.
I see a biblical term, hemorrhoid. I don't find it in our modern medical dictionary. Tell us, what is this hemorrhoid?
In modern day time, it is hemorrhoids, which is piles and sores in the rectum, and it is extremely painful.
Okay. Let us go to our last segment. You spoke of the magnitude of death. My question to you, what do we know from the text that there were numerous deaths? How can we extract from the text that there were numerous deaths?
Okay, if we can go and look at verses from verse 26. But the text clearly states that the scourge of death was too great. Also, the casualties were so numerous that the bodies could not be removed from the fields and streets.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, professors, for giving us that insight into the severity of blessings and curses. At this time, we will have question and answer segment. I urge your indulgence from our own university postgraduate student, Daniel Taylor.
Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is feeling well. How are we feeling today? Are we okay? No, we're not. Well, you had some time to study, you had some time to learn, and it's going to be a quick question and answer segment. I would like you to raise your hand if you have the answers. Question 1. In an effort to convince Israel to make God their choice, Moses used persuasion to accomplish this task. Kindly list one or more tenets of persuasion. Soraya? All right, 1 second. Let's try that again. Go again, Soraya.
Repetition.
That is correct. All right, question number 2. There are several faculties of the soul. Identify the one considered as the hub upon which all the others rotate. There are several facilities of the soul. Identify the one considered as the hub upon which all others rotate. Thank you. Go ahead.
Choice.
Thank you both for answering the questions. Remember, you have to raise your hands to participate. All right, question number 3. So the Hebrew and Greek definitions are respectively given for blessings. Kindly place the correct definition. So, to bestow upon, to be the result of, to be indwelt, to be filled with. So which definition is that? Which is the Greek and which is the Hebrew? Does anybody have the answer? Oh, Soraya again. Soraya is just doing it.
To bestow upon and to be the result of is barak, which is Hebrew.
Okay.
And to be endowed, to be filled with,
Okay.
is makarios, which
Very
is Greek.
good. Everybody give it up for Soraya. She's doing a great job. All right, so you guys have 3 more questions to show me how much you were learning today. Yeah? Yeah? I love the enthusiasm. All right, so here we go. Number 4. Name one crop disease that was a curse. Oh, we have another one. Name one crop disease that was a curse.
Mildew.
That is correct. You can clap. Claps are free. All right. Number 5. Name one human disease that was a curse. So we did crops. Okay. We did crops. Now we're at human. Name one human disease that was a curse.
Well, as far as I know,
Yes.
one human disease that was definitely a curse was COVID.
Can we try again, sir? we
That's not an acceptable answer.
we are not in 2023. Let's go again. Let's try again, sir. Listen to the question carefully, sir. Okay? But we do thank you for your participation so far. So now we remember that we are speaking of Deuteronomy 28. Yes? So let's go again. Name one human disease that was a curse found in Deuteronomy chapter 28.
Was it pox? Botch, right? Am I correct? Botch, right? Okay.
That is correct, sir. Come on, give him a hand. And we have a final answer. We have a final question, and it says here: identify a phrase that speaks to the magnitude. Oh boy, I need to go back to school. Identify a phrase that speaks to the magnitude of death. Oh, we have magnitude. Oh, we have two persons. Magnitude speaks to the greatness, the large amount.
The inability to bury bodies.
Very good. All right, well, we just want to thank you for your participation, for those who were listening, and for those who took the time to be with us. Do enjoy your day, okay?
Thank you for participating. It's good to see that you are listening. And now, I will hand you over to our very own Professor Sandra Phillip, who will give her concluding remarks.
Good morning, students. We thank you for your presence We thank you for your presence and attentive ear. The professor, lecturers, and members of this research team hope that you have garnished insight and knowledge of Deuteronomy 28 from the foregoing presentation. Kindly bear in mind our thesis statement: the choices we make will either bring joy and happiness or result in awful misery with devastating eternal consequences. I'll read that again. The choices we make will either bring joy and happiness or result in awful misery with devastating eternal consequences. You are dismissed, and God bless.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentation for today. I want to say a very warm thank you to our guest professors, to our local professors. Thank you. And I will now hand over to Pastor Avili. This is the end of our
Thank you
presentation.
very much. We must show them appreciation.